Hello and welcome to the WorkLife Wellbeing Podcast, a podcast brought to you by WorkLife by Open Money. My name is Leah Heath and I will be your host for this podcast. As part of a 3-part series, we will be joined by special guests to discuss matters related to wellbeing in the workplace. We will draw upon their professional expertise and expert opinions on different issues and challenges facing women in the workplace. We will also guide employers on an effective strategy and the right tools to support their employees' wellbeing. This week, we are discussing pregnancy and the workplace. Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. Welcome to Series 2. It's really exciting that we're able to do this and that my bosses agree that recording and editing podcasts is actually a good use of my time and not just a self-indulgent excuse to chat with interesting people. Actually, we were really happy with the success of our first podcast, which discussed each of the WorkLife's 5 pillars of wellbeing. And so we thought, why not record a second series? But just to keep you on your toes, we'll be using this series to discuss a particular matter in the workplace. So back in March, around International Women's Day, my colleagues and I were having some very interesting conversations around women's health in the workplace and how employers can support their employees throughout key changes in their lives. And ultimately, 3 key themes kept coming up. It was pregnancy, finances, and the menopause. So today, we will be discussing pregnancy at work. Many people in the workplace choose to have children, and we could easily say that this affects around 50% of people in the population, but actually, this isn't true. Pregnancy can affect anyone. This isn't just a women's issue. And for employers, it can be really difficult to know where to start in terms of supporting this big life change within the workplace. But luckily, we've got a guest with us today whose expertise we are going to draw upon. Faye Walker is a qualified midwife and has recently launched her own business to help those expecting a baby have the most positive experience that they can. This is through antenatal education, teaching about the mind-body connection, and education about the supportive role of birth partners. So we're going to take a little dive into how Faye helps people expecting a baby at Roanna Birthing and how she is keen to work with workplaces in order to help employers support those in their workplaces. But firstly, Faye, how are you today?
Hello, good morning, Leah. I'm good today, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, no worries at all. We're very excited to have you. So we've just spoke a little bit about, some of the terminology that we use. Could you please briefly explain to listeners who might be unsure, what does antenatal actually mean?
Antenatal basically just means pregnancy, so kind of any point from conception right until that point that you begin giving birth. And you've used it in the context yourself, antenatal education. And another context we might use it in is antenatal appointments, and that's basically just a healthcare appointment at some point in your pregnancy.
Okay, and what do you think are the biggest challenges facing pregnant women in the workplace or indeed in everyday life?
So whilst pregnancy in itself doesn't hinder a woman's ability to remain professional, for most women, pregnancy in the workplace can present many challenges. They must find the right balance between the usual demands of their job, the requirements of pregnancy, for example, getting time off for scheduled and sometimes unscheduled antenatal appointments, and the physical demands and side effects that you can potentially have. So like morning sickness, fatigue, and issues with comfort sometimes as well if sitting or standing for a prolonged period of time. And despite laws in place to prevent discrimination, women quite often face unfair and discriminatory behaviour in the workplace. And they can be stigmatised by colleagues as being less competent or able. They can be overlooked for promotions, be forced to take early leave and sometimes lose their job as well. And studies have shown that many women have delayed becoming pregnant and starting their family due to fears surrounding job security. And that can then in turn cause undue stress, if their job security is threatened.
And do you know what the sort of regulations are behind, like the legal regulations are behind pregnant women in the workplace? Like how much pay do they get? How much unpaid pay are they allowed? Or does it vary from workplace to workplace?
Yeah, it varies between companies, workplaces. Some people get a certain amount of paid leave, full pay. for when they begin their maternity pay, and then that drops to statutory. Other people get a kind of reduction in increments. So, for example, some places might just have 6 weeks full pay from this point they start the maternity leave, and then just go to government statutory pay for up to a year. And other places have full pay for 8 weeks, 50% for 16 weeks after that, and then no pay from 9 months. So yeah, it varies.
Okay, it seems like a bit of a vicious cycle, really. You want employers that will help women when they're pregnant, but in the most cynical way ever, employers are probably, well, they're in their best interest to help their employees, but in the most cynical way, they might be thinking, well, we want someone who can work full time, that we have the use of while they're here. So yeah, it's interesting topic to bring up in the workplace. But taking the onus away from women just for the moment, how can this period of time affect the partners of people who are pregnant?
Yeah, so obviously one of the challenges I mentioned above was job security, and that doesn't just impact the woman herself. That obviously impacts the whole family. Financial stability is required to help raise a child in a suitable environment, and financial concerns can have a massive impact on mental health, a negative one if there's high stress levels there. And stress levels in partners as well, if they are raised, that can actually have a negative impact on the pregnant person, which in turn can actually affect the well-being of the baby as well. So it is, like you say, this vicious cycle of stress creating stress within a family unit.
And how do you think these sort of challenges can be overcome? And that's whether it's in the workplace, whether it's something people do outside of the workplace. So I know you work on anxiety and mental well-being externally of the workplace. But how do you think would be the best way to sort of challenge these different things that you're coming up with, these different anxieties, and make them positive, or make the person feel positive about them?
Yeah, so kind of managers and employers or managers of pregnant employees one of the things they can do is offer flexible working arrangements. I know you were saying about full time and we want them to work to their best, but actually sometimes flexible working can actually help to enhance an employee's work, because they're able to better meet their work demands when potentially experiencing pregnancy-related illness. So they're able to do that balancing act themselves and still put the work in that they need to, and still balance that rest with pregnancy when needed as well. And they can create supportive interactions with colleagues within the workplace as well, and companies can help to reduce that stigma and kind of discriminatory behaviour that pregnant women can face, and that provides that positive mindset when within the workplace, because a pregnant person will feel supported by colleagues and managers. And then externally, women, I would always encourage women and partners to listen to relaxation scripts, visualizations, which is something that I provide.
Yeah, and just focusing on the workplace, because we're going to talk about what you do at Roanna Birthing shortly, which is very important. But I guess with what you're saying in terms of flexible working, do you see a bit of a trend towards it becoming more pregnant women or people going through pregnancy in terms of partners becoming a bit less stressed about this whole old style of archaic working where you have to be in from 9 to 5? Because I imagine even just the opportunity to say, oh well, I've got a scan today at 9, I'll work an extra hour in the evening, is so much better than having to take a holiday. I guess if it was me, and even if I have to take a doctor's appointment or anything, it does help me to know that it doesn't matter if I have that bit of time, because my employer is helpful in that respect. Do you think that this is going to be positive for women and people in their people who are supporting pregnant partners?
Yes, so I think that to have that flexibility to attend, I mean, legally you are supposed to legally have time away to go to these appointments. But like you say, yourself, if you're extremely busy or you have deadlines, it's all fine and well to say, well, I'm just going to go to this appointment. You still have to find time to do that work. So if you have that flexibility without taking unpaid leave, annual leave, then that's great. And actually, a lot of women, there was actually studies that showed that if you offered help to pregnant women, they actually felt worse within the workplace because it affected their self-esteem. It can just reiterate to women that they aren't able to do the role themselves properly anymore. So actually, it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach. You know, managers need to have this open dialogue with pregnant women to see what works for them, and if flexible working works well for them and they can have that appointment and work well in the evenings, then that's fantastic because there's no compromises anywhere.
Yeah, I guess it's that element of choice as well, being able to make the choices. If you I believe if you employ someone, you should trust them to get the job done. So giving a pregnant woman or anyone in a situation where they have some sort of medical issue that they need to flexibly work for, giving them that trust is really, really important. But I guess what you were saying is this all flexible working and reiterating to women that they aren't able to do the job, it all links back to reducing the stigma of pregnant women in the workplace, that they are less able, because we talk about baby brain and going out for different, sometimes I've never had a baby, but sometimes my brain just doesn't work, so it's not really I personally don't think it is an excuse to stigmatize or label people as not doing a proper job. There will of course be other things on their mind, which sort of leads us into the next part of this, which is explaining what you do at Roanna Birthing, as you talk about the mind-body connection, etc. And hopefully, I was speaking to a doula once, and her idea was that she said the last thing a woman should feel is anxiety leading up to their due date. But I can't imagine how you wouldn't. So how is it that you overcome these type of things with also, someone perhaps being in a working role at the same time?
A little bit of anxiety and fear and stress is completely normal. But what we don't want is for that to become the kind of main feeling, and to have those stress hormones to be floating about all the time. So you want to create that nice, relaxed, happy, kind of positive mindset towards birth. And that's really what I do. So Roanna Birthing essentially is an antenatal education and hypnobirthing course. And I also run pregnancy relaxation sessions as well. And the course covers heaps of aspects, loads, not enough time for me to talk about everything I cover today, but we do cover how the body and mind work during birth, like you said, that mind-body connection, how to get the most out of your kind of own individual birth experience, so by creating the most appropriate environment for you, by providing practical techniques like massage, and how to achieve a state of relaxation. Also, how to recognize those fears and anxieties that you might have surrounding birth so that you can deal with those, cope with those, and get yourself back into that nice, relaxed state. And I encourage autonomy in decision making, and that in turn leads to empowerment and confidence within your pregnancy and birth choices. And I also cover how partners can best support the pregnant person during pregnancy, birth, and also in that kind of postnatal period initially as well, because it's all an emotional and vulnerable time. The whole spectrum can be potentially quite a difficult time, not difficult, but a different time in a couple's life. And then we also discuss practical elements like safe sleep, feeding, bathing, and that helps to just aid that feeling of confidence, especially in new parents. And I think that feeling of confidence with a baby, especially when partners only have potentially 2 weeks off, if they've had that confidence and ability to cope with stress, anxieties, because that continues, once you've got a brand new baby, you still have those worries. If you're able to deal with those in that first couple of weeks of your baby's life, then you're able to transition back into the workplace a little bit easier as well, because you've got those coping mechanisms.
And how important is it within the Roanna Birthing courses that you do, that people understand that going back to work is okay? How do you sort of communicate the relationship between becoming new parents and staying as the working corporate person that they were, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, so well, I mean, I talk about, like I said, the kind of practical elements and kind of expected sleep patterns, and I talk about baby proofing the relationship. So when I talk about baby proofing the relationship, I talk about the fact that housework, baby care, finances, etc., won't be 50-50, and not to have that split. So to manage the expectations, I also get them to write a list of things that might be potential argument kind of triggers, stress triggers, and quite often that involves going back to work, and partner spending more time away from the family and how they're going to manage that. So I get them to kind of preempt any issues they might have and to try and find strategies to work that out before they become an issue. So that makes it easier for them, hopefully, when the expectations are more manageable when they do go back into the workplace.
Have you ever worked with like non-heteronormative couples, so maybe single parents or parents of the same sex relationship? And how does this change what you do, or does it particularly change?
No, I have worked with all setups, and no, it doesn't change what I do. The advice is the same, really, as long as you have that chosen support. It is a partner, support partner, whoever that may be, parent, same-sex couple. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the support is, as long as they're providing the right support.
And can it be one person providing support, or can it be like people say it takes a village, don't they? So could it be a few people? How does it work if one person is maybe part of a bigger family that's got a stronger support system, but not necessarily that one person?
Yeah, it just applies to everyone. Of course, you absolutely need more than just one person, especially if your setup is that your partner potentially works long hours, and they can't be at home all the time. They can't compromise on, like you say, that big corporate workload that they have to do to come home, and provide that support. So yeah, absolutely. Friends, family, support groups. I always recommend different support groups, baby classes, to go and encourage that social network postnatally as well, so that if people don't have family nearby, which is quite often the case, they can create their own village of people that understand what they're going through and can give hopefully solicited advice, the right advice to them at the time.
I'm listening to this and I'm just thinking, how brilliant would it be if a workplace could provide part of that support network? Because that is a whole group of people there, whether you're in a huge company or a small company. It's nice to know that you've got someone that could help pick up the slack if need be. So we've been speaking at WorkLife to you, Faye, about potentially working together to bring your services to workplaces. What can employers do to help in this sense, in becoming part of that village?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier about trying to get co-workers and colleagues on board with that social interaction to reduce that stigma. And that in itself, potential coffee meetup socials creates that little network that you've just mentioned. And otherwise, employers just need to do more than the legal bare minimum that is required of. So many companies just do this risk assessment tick box. But more progressive employers need to recognise that they need to look at that mental well-being, and kind of encompass that as a whole. So things that they can do is offer resources and benefits that are available and appropriate to the pregnant person, so and their partner, which would be, like you said, potentially my courses and my resources that I have. And then other things that they can do is just provide genuine support at this key life stage. Continue to evaluate the pregnant person's needs at different times throughout the pregnancy. Don't just do like a one-off evaluation. Allow that time off for healthcare and education without compromising career opportunities and pay. And also remembering that kind of one size fit does not one size fits all approach doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So what they kind of want to do is ask questions, open dialogue really with their employees, and demonstrate attentiveness to their needs as well, because they can, they're in a unique position to offer that support, to be flexible. with their pregnant workers. Specifically, something that can be offered kind of in that open dialogue conversation that you might be having with a pregnant worker, something that can be offered as a resource is allowing time out or access to relaxation classes or relaxation MP3 recordings. And there is evidence that shows that pregnancy outcomes are generally improved. So you have fewer hospital admissions, fewer obstetric, which is medical complications, and a longer gestation. So you're kind of pregnant for longer is basically what that means. There's a reduction in stress levels, and women can feel more able to cope with stress as well. And there's a reduction in fatigue purely just from having access to and practicing relaxation. And it can have a positive impact on the woman's emotional state as well, because it increases the positive hormones that are released, such as endorphins. And obviously that's not only beneficial for the woman and her baby, but also because beneficial to the employer, because you're potentially getting less time off sick. If you've got fewer hospital admissions, they don't have to have that time out to go to those. They're able to work for a longer time in their pregnancy, potentially, if they want to as well. And they feel generally more positive and happy within the workplace, which we know leads to more productive work. And generally as well, employees feel more valued and work more effectively and have a bit more loyalty to the company as well if they're getting the support from their employers at such a key stage in their life.
Yeah, I think the headline here really is just treat your employees well, as it always is. Value them as people and understand that their well-being is absolutely in an employer's best interest to keep well, keep sane. But where can employers go or people go if they need more information on pregnancy in the workplace or Roanna Birthing? Where can they go if they listen to this podcast and they think, right, that's something that I need to pick up on, either as an employer or just as an average Joe?
Yeah, so if you're kind of looking for the actual legal requirements and rights of workers, there's a couple of different websites that you can access. So gov.uk has got a section on pregnant employees' rights. There's also another one which is great, which is the ACAS Guide to Pregnancy and Maternity Discrimination. And Citizens Advice have got a website as well that's dedicated to pregnant employees' rights. And Health and Safety Executive, the HSC website, has also got information about protecting pregnant women and new mothers. So that's quite good for workplaces that might have hazardous conditions or do a different kind of pattern to the 9 to 5 heavy lifting, etc. So that's more specific to that. And then Roanna Birthing is on socials, so on Instagram and Facebook, both with the tag Roanna Birthing, and website under construction. It will hopefully be roannabirthing.co.uk.
Well, let's hope. This podcast's not going to be released till September, so you never know. You never know.
Then absolutely.
Yeah, no. So it's been really interesting to speak to you. Are there any sort of takeaways that you would say to employers? Let's say maybe 3 main takeaways for employers of what to do in terms of their pregnant staff, their staff who are thinking of becoming pregnant, and their partners.
So first of all, like we said earlier, ensure that they are supporting the emotional and kind of mental well-being of the pregnant person by providing that individual one-to-one open dialogue throughout pregnancy. By offering benefits in pregnancy helps to reduce financial worries about potentially paying for antenatal education privately. And for partners as well, to know that their family is included in the company's well-being and thoughts can be really positive for when they go back to work, feeling like the company cares about the family as a whole.
I think there's some really interesting thoughts, and I think a lot of the time we're very quick to think, okay, pregnant person, that's it. So I like the way that you include the partners as well so much throughout this. And is it possible that you just give us a quick sort of breakdown of what it is that you offer at Roanna Birthing, just in case anybody did want to get in contact?
Yeah, so the classes that I offer, it's a 5-week course. So it's a couple of hours, one evening a week, and I do that online. Or if you're local to me, then it's face-to-face classes that I'll be running soon. And basically we talk about different topics each week. I mean, I literally throw an absolute ton of information at couples and encourage them to go and kind of do their own research for things that are appropriate to them too. So like I said, that kind of actual physiological aspect, so how your body works. So I talk about how the brain works, how the uterus works, how to actually understand what your body is doing during the birth process. Because quite shockingly, we don't actually know that. People don't know that. The only thing they see is what we see on TV, which is usually dramatized and wrong. So I kind of teach them what actually happens and how to best support that to happen. Because, we are beings that think too much. So I allow them to go back into that more instinctual, habitual kind of way to give birth. Some of it is hippie, but not very much of it. Most of it is evidence-based information, kind of up-to-date evidence-based information that I give them. And we talk about, like I say, relaxation techniques. I read out a relaxation script every week, so they also get that 25 minutes of Zen in that couple of hour period every week. And I talk about things like how to get your baby in a good position for birth, the ways that you can move within birth, pain relief options, things that you can do at home. Like I say, loads. I could literally talk about this for hours and hours. Talk about the different stages of birth, what actually happens at different stages in labour, and what you can be doing to support that, what your partner can be doing to support that, what's normal, what's not normal, and the medical side of birth as well, so that people know that if they don't have the experience that they'd maybe hoped for, people sometimes have a quite set view of how they think they might give birth, and sometimes that doesn't happen. Babies can kind of make their own minds up as to what they're doing. So if it goes differently to how you expect, I give you coping mechanisms for that to try and allow everyone to have a positive experience, kind of regardless of the outcome.
No, it sounds good. And with you being a qualified midwife with however long experience, how long were you in a midwife?
11 years.
11 years clinical experience. So, I imagine it's quite a good balance between the hippie relaxation stuff and the medical side of it. Yeah. So it's really good to know, because sometimes I think if you are a corporate business, it might be difficult to get your head round the sort of relax. I mean, we are changing now, which is for the better, and in terms of well-being, etc. But for anyone that's not completely sold on it, it is a nice balance. But we have run out of time now, unfortunately. So as you mentioned earlier, if people would like to get in contact, you are on socials, Facebook and Instagram under Roanna Birthing. And by the time this goes out, hopefully there'll be a website as well. Yes. But thank you so much for your expertise on this topic, because as I say, I've not had a child. I don't know a lot about it. So it's really interesting for me to learn different bits and bobs about it. But hopefully WorkLife and Roanna Birthing will be working together and offering it to our clients on the platform. But if you did want to get in touch independently, please do. Faye is, I'm sure, excited to hear from you.
Absolutely.
And we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much for joining us, Faye.
Thank you very much for having me, Leah.
Thanks. Bye. We hope you enjoyed the first episode of the second series. We know that we certainly did. Faye addressed some interesting themes throughout, but what really stuck out to us was her urging employers to do more than just the bare minimum. Recognise that one size does not fit all by opening up the conversation around pregnancy and work. Ask questions and include care around pregnancy within benefit solutions so that employees can see clearly that they are supported and valued in the workplace. Let's do more as employers to help people at this important time in their life. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the WorkLife Wellbeing Podcast. To find out more about the themes addressed in this episode, visit our WorkLife blog by following the link in the description of this episode, or contact us via our website. To stay up to date, please like, download and subscribe to the WorkLife Wellbeing Podcast. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Again, links are in the episode description. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great week.